reporting for KD Chats here in downtown Toronto with the founder and executive artistic director, Lisa Brown.
Hello.
Hi. Tell me a little bit about how you got involved in mental health and addiction awareness.
Well, I started as a registered nurse at what was formerly known as the Queen Street Mental Health Centre, and worked predominantly evenings, and that's where a lot of creative activities started to happen when I was working with individuals who were receiving treatment, and we were jamming, writing poetry, cutting hair, listening to poetry, and that sort of developed the whole idea behind Workman Arts.
Were you inspired by many of the patients that you were working with?
Totally. I was meeting people that were playing Thelonious Monk, who were ventriloquists, who were fabulous singers. No, the people that I met were truly gifted, and they were receiving care because they were having fairly significant problems with their mental health.
Do you think that there's a very close line between genius and madness?
Everybody asks that question. I think the general sort of consensus is that there is no more mad artist than there is an artist without madness. If you think that 1 in 20% of people will have a mental illness in their life, well, then that's 1 in 20 artists. It may even be higher. We do know that Kay Redfield Jamieson and Connie Strong have both found strong linkages between creativity and bipolar disorder. And it's very new in the field of research looking at this issue. So we may find that, in 10 or 20 years, that there is more of a propensity for people with mental illness to gravitate to art, and for artists to have mental health issues or more issues than, say, the regular person who doesn't.
What inspired you to work at Workman Arts and start the Rendezvous with Madness Film Festival?
Oh, well, that was wonderful. We were working predominantly in theatre at the time, and a woman named Kathleen Fagan, who was from the University of Ottawa, we were working on a festival at the time, City in the Asylum, and she had come to see one of the shows, and she had said, Lisa, I have about 4,000 titles of films that deal with mental illness. And would you be interested in taking a look at what I've got, and perhaps we could put them up on the screen? And so our conversations turned into the beginnings of a film festival. And 20 years later, we are here as one of Toronto's film festivals, and very excited about our upcoming festival.
What's the importance of raising awareness through film of mental illness and addiction?
I think it's a really easy way to understand what mental health, mental illness is, by even virtue of where you are when you see the art. You can go into a darkened room, fairly anonymous. You can watch films that deal with difficult subjects, and you can either participate or not participate as an audience member. So if you're uncomfortable and you want to learn more about mental illness, watching a film and listening to a discussion afterwards is a really, really good way. You can be as passive as you'd like in terms of learning, or you can be active, and that depends on whether or not you ask any of the panelists. And generally after each screening we have a filmmaker, we have a mental health expert, and we have someone who has lived experience of what we put on the screen. So if you come in to see a film, you can ask a question, or you can listen to what other people are saying or what the panel is saying. So it's a really nice way. You control the amount of education that you would like to have, and you can go anonymously.
And have you had a lot of audience members become more active in the community after going to the film screenings?
I think that there's a lot of conversation that happens afterwards, conversation that might not take place otherwise. So we evaluate after each of the screenings. We ask the audience members to fill out an evaluation form. I think that things get brought up that ordinarily might not be brought up if you hadn't seen the film and you hadn't had a conversation about it.
Tell me a little bit about William Kurelek's The Maze.
It's a terrific film that we're going to be premiering on October 19th. We're turning St. Anne's Church into a cinema, and we will be screening this documentary film made by Zach and Nick Young. It's a film about William Kurelek's life and art as one of our great Canadian painters. Many people look at William Kurelek or think of William Kurelek as sort of prairie naive, when in fact, if you look at this body of work, he's quite prolific, and he really sort of examines his internal psyche and he brings it out on his canvases. This particular screening will look at his upbringing, we'll look at his time at the Maudsley Hospital when he started to become quite unwell, so he admitted himself into the Maudsley Hospital, where he painted the maze. He didn't think he was getting enough attention by the mental health care folks, and so he painted this incredible painting called The Maze, his most famous, and showed it to his psychiatrist to show the psychiatrist that he was a really interesting specimen. When the psychiatrist saw the painting, he was quite flabbergasted, and got another doctor who was involved in art therapy, and William spent about 4 years in psychiatric care over in England. He then came back and got a dealer of Isaac's and had started to show his work, and his work is now priceless, and it's extraordinary. What's great about this film is not only does it examine William's life, but you hear William talking about his question as to whether or not he had a mental illness or was it a spiritual breakdown, because he does find God, and he converts to Catholicism, which becomes really central to his life and his work. And it's a really wonderful film. The filmmakers have taken his paintings and they've animated them and added, what they think William might have been thinking about at the time when he was creating. So it's really, if anyone wants to know about art, mental illness, and spirituality, this is a film that will certainly have a conversation going.
Can we expect many other similar types of films at the festival?
Yes, we have 21 programs at Rendezvous with Madness Film Festival that starts on November 9th and runs to the 17th. Most of the screenings will happen at the Bell Lightbox. We have a number of Dutch films this year. I'm not sure. We've always liked the Dutch work because it tends to have an authenticity that we don't see as much of in other countries. But we start off with a beautiful film that's one of the Netherlands, or it is the Netherlands' entry into the Oscars, called Cowboy or Little Bird, and it's looking at a young boy who's really struggling to make sense of his world, and then we end with another film called Fat Kid Rules the World, and that's also about a young person struggling to find himself in the place in the world. But throughout the week, we have a symposium that's looking at how documentary filmmaking has changed in its portrayal of mental illness. What are the politics behind it? What are the ethical considerations? Looking from Fred Wiseman's Titicut Follies up to today's current project called Chez Soi. And we'll have filmmakers from each of those programs. In the middle of that symposium, we have the making of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest called Completely Cuckoo, and the filmmaker who made that is coming up. And it's really interesting because we have, it kind of chronicalizes the involvement of the person who's receiving treatment. So in Titicut Follies, Frederick went into an asylum and shot the patients at the hospital. In Completely Cuckoo, or in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, the patients actually became actors in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And in Chez Soi, it's a documentary on housing, and the individuals that are the subjects in the film take a much more leadership role in terms of themselves being the subjects in the documentary. So we're spending the day kind of looking at how it's changed and what the future is with all of these considerations.
And what are your goals for the film festival for years to come?
Well, I was thinking about that when I was writing my address for our catalog. I think that we don't use the term mental health right. I think we might use the term mental illness as a broad stroke. I would like to see Rendezvous with Madness really get into mental health. And if you think of it, that we don't see a lot of work that sort of suggests or denotes positive mental health. In fact, if I was to ask you what positive mental health was, that you'd have to sort of think about that. We use mental health as a general term, where I think that we need to be thinking you're in poor physical health and good physical health. Mental health is that continuum where you sit in poor or in good, chronic or acute, that everybody has mental health issues, and it's just how we deal with them as to how good our quality of life is going to be and how well we'll cope and how happy we'll be in our life living here.
So kind of exploring how we can work towards being happier and healthier.
Yeah, and making positive contributions to our society. But I think that if the festival can start to really move towards celebrating good mental health through the films, that would be amazing. I can tell you we've seen so many films over the years, very few talk about good mental health. It's all about mental illness. And, how can you figure out what mental illness is if you don't know what mental health is?
And where's the best place to find out more information on you and Workman Arts and on the festival online?
Yes, so for Workman Arts, it's www.workmanarts.com. For Rendezvous with Madness Film Festival, you can go through the Workman website, or you can go to rendezvouswithmadness.com, and you'll be able to get the full lineup for our festival this year.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and congratulations on a great festival.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm Katie Uhlmann reporting for Katie Chats here in downtown Toronto.